The moment the little girl held up the crumpled $10 bill, her hands trembled like someone holding on to the last thread of hope. The entire bakery fell silent, observing that almost whispered request. She only wanted a simple cake to celebrate her mother's birthday, a birthday that might be the only happy moment for the two of them that month. But the impatient clerk was already preparing to refuse. Then the door opened with a sharp sound, and a millionaire, marked by a loneliness he hid behind an expensive suit, witnessed everything. In a few seconds, his gaze changed, as if something profound had been ripped from the past. And before anyone understood, he took a step forward, determined to do something that no one there would ever forget. Before we delve into this amazing story, tell me which city and state you're watching from. Leave a comment and I'll reply with gratitude. And while you're at it, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and like this video. We want to share more stories like this. The bakery door rang with that metallic bell that always announced new purchases, but in that early afternoon the sound seemed louder than the room itself. The little girl entered slowly, as if treading on unfamiliar territory, clutching tightly the single $10 bill she carried in her closed fist. Her eyes observed everything with a mixture of enchantment and fear. Display cases full of tall cakes, glistening icing, the smells of vanilla and fresh dough, as if the place were always celebrating something. But for her, celebrating was a luxury that fit entirely within that crumpled bill. She swallowed hard, approached the counter, and stood slightly on tiptoe to try to reach her voice. It was low, almost a whisper. She wanted a simple cake. Anyone I could afford. The counter attendant, accustomed to customers who ordered in a hurry and paid without thinking, looked at the bill with discreet, almost automatic disdain. The girl noticed the gesture, stepped back slightly, and clutched the bill even tighter, trying not to show the panic coursing through her chest. While she waited, her gaze wandered around the store as if searching for hidden courage somewhere, clinging to the idea that this cake was all her mother would have on that birthday, and that her smile would be worth more than any sophisticated decoration. Time seemed to drag on, and each second felt like an eternity to the child, who held her chin high with an almost adult dignity, even knowing that $10 wouldn't be enough for anything there. The cashier took a deep breath, leaned in slightly, and asked if she had anyone with her, a mother, a guardian, someone who could make up the difference. The girl shook her head with a no so small it seemed afraid of her own existence. At that moment, an elegant couple behind her in line murmured something about wasting time, and that simple comment made the little girl's chest ache even more. She hadn't asked to be there. She hadn't asked to be poor. She just wanted a cake. She just wanted her mother to have a decent birthday. The cashier began to explain in a firm tone that with that amount, she might be able to get a slice, not a whole cake. A slice. That hit the girl like a weight that made her shoulders sink. A slice wasn't enough to sing happy birthday. A slice wasn't enough to put candles on. A slice didn't have the power to transform a difficult day into something beautiful. The girl tried to answer, but her voice failed her. It was as if everything was crumbling too quickly before her eyes. Then the door of the place rang again. The bell vibrated briefly, but enough for everyone to look. A tall, well-dressed man entered, his dark suit contrasting with the soft light of the confectionery. He had that rare presence of someone accustomed to being noticed, but at the same time, his eyes carried something that didn't match his impeccable appearance, a kind of silent loneliness. He paused for a moment, observing the scene as if it were a moving photograph. His gaze lingered on the little girl, on the note she held, on how her breath seemed fragile and urgent. Something within him shifted, as if an ancient echo had awakened. The millionaire didn't know that little girl, but he knew very well the feeling of wanting something simple and not being able to have it. He remembered when he was too young to understand why his father was never present at his birthdays, or why the cake always arrived late, bought by some hurried employee. He knew the pain of celebrating alone. He knew the weight of observing the happiness of others, as if looking out a window. And at that moment, seeing that little girl holding a $10 bill with more hope than money, he felt a pang in his chest. He took a few steps, approaching silently, as if afraid of startling her. The cashier was still explaining that there wasn't a whole cake for that price, while the couple behind her criticized the slowness of the situation. But the millionaire didn't take his eyes off the girl. He noticed the trembling in her hands, the way her eyes filled with shame when the adults around her showed impatience. He saw himself in that childlike vulnerability and felt something he hadn't felt in years, a genuine urge to intervene. It wasn't about money, it was about dignity, about what that girl was trying to do for her mother, about the pure gesture, small and gigantic at the same time. The little girl took a deep breath, as if gathering all her remaining strength to try again. She asked them to check if there really wasn't anything left, not even a small cake, not one that was on sale, not even a tiny bit left over. She looked at the display case with a gleam that mixed despair and longing. The sales assistant, though not wanting to hurt her feelings, answered honestly, there wasn't any. The cheapest one cost much more than she had. And then the millionaire stepped forward, but still didn't say anything. He simply reached out to the side of the display case, observing all the cakes as if he were carefully choosing them. The girl didn't even notice at first, because she was busy trying to stop her tears from falling. But when he spoke, his deep voice echoed throughout the room. "To be." That was all he said. One word, strong, full of intention. He pointed to the most beautiful, tallest, most elaborate cake in the display case, the one covered in layers of white whipped cream and gold details. It was the cake the little girl had looked at the beginning, but never dared even to wish for aloud. The sales assistant's eyes widened in surprise. The couple behind them turned around with confused expressions. And the little girl. It took her 2 seconds to understand. When she did, her eyes widened too, as if it weren't possible that that dream had been pointed out like that in front of everyone. The millionaire didn't smile. He didn't make a scene. He simply added in the same firm voice, "This one's for her." The words hit the girl like a warm wind, dispelling an entire winter. She clutched the $10 bill even tighter, as if fearing it might be some kind of mistake. The cashier hesitated, asking if he was sure. He confirmed with a simple nod, as if to say the decision was already made. The girl finally looked at the man, and in that instant, he saw something in her eyes that he hadn't expected. It wasn't just gratitude, it was recognition. It was as if she could see that he too carried a burden, even if it was invisible. It was as if a piece of his loneliness had been seen for the first time in a long time. And that's when something started to change, for both of them. The entire bakery seemed to have stopped in time when the millionaire pointed to the most expensive cake in the display case and declared, without hesitation, that it was for her. The phrase pierced the air like a silent thunderclap, the kind that makes no sound but shakes everything around it. The little girl remained there, motionless, clutching the $10 bill so tightly that her fingers turned white. It was as if her mind, so accustomed to denying dreams, was trying to comprehend the idea that something so grand could actually be about to happen. The clerk, still in shock, began to move slowly, almost carefully so as not to break the spell of the moment. She opened the display case, gently moved the cake aside, and placed it on the counter as if positioning a treasure. The girl took an involuntary step back, startled by the grandeur of it all. She couldn't believe that this gift, so far removed from her reality, was right there before her. The millionaire watched everything in silence, but his gaze wasn't that of someone doing charity. It was that of someone witnessing an old pain repeating itself before his eyes. a pain he knew well, perhaps better than he'd like. The atmosphere, previously filled with impatient murmurs, was now overtaken by a collective curiosity. People whispered amongst themselves, trying to understand who that child was, who that man was, and why such an improbable scene was unfolding before them. A woman commented softly that she had never seen anything like it. A gentleman crossed his arms and murmured that there were still kind-hearted people in the world. But the little girl, oblivious to any comments, could only look at the cake and then at the man, trying to find in this exchange an explanation that made sense in the small and difficult world she lived in. The attendant, slightly uncomfortable with so much attention, swallowed hard and asked the girl if she wanted to put a message on the cake, such as, "Happy birthday, Mommy." The girl blinked a few times, as if trying to decipher if the question was really directed at her. And when she finally realized it was, her eyes filled with a sparkle. She nodded quickly, as if accepting something too precious to refuse, and then murmured the phrase with such deep sweetness that even the air seemed lighter. The attendant prepared everything meticulously, wrote the message with blue icing, and smiled at the girl, perhaps feeling a little embarrassed for almost having sent her away minutes before. Meanwhile, the millionaire moved closer, not to show off, but because his mind seemed to have been pulled somewhere far away. He observed the scene and, without realizing it, touched his own wrist with his thumb, a gesture he made whenever something pressed on his memory. He thought of his mother, of the last time he celebrated her birthday with her, of how his absence in the following years had created a void that not all the luxury in the world could fill. He remembered something simple, her look when she saw that he had remembered her birthday, even with a cake that was too small. And it was precisely that look that he gradually rediscovered in the little girl, as if the past and the present were facing each other through that gesture. When the cake was ready, the cashier turned the box around for the girl to see. And at that moment, her reaction was so profound, so genuine, that it made two women in line unconsciously cover their faces with their hands. The girl didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't run. She simply brought both hands to her mouth, as if trying to hold back her own heart so it wouldn't escape through her throat. Her eyes shone so brightly that it seemed all the light in the bakery had focused there. She tried to speak, but emotion choked her voice. It was then that she turned to the millionaire, as if seeking his permission to believe in that miracle. The man noticed immediately. He bent down slightly to speak to her at eye level, a gesture no one expected from a famous businessman, accustomed to meetings in high, distant rooms. But there, in that simple pastry shop, he leaned in without a second thought. "Do you like it?" she asked in a soft but firm tone. The girl shook her head quickly, holding back tears. He smiled slightly, not a smile of someone trying to please, but a smile of someone who understands. "Then take it. Your mother deserves it." The phrase was so simple and so accurate that it almost broke the girl. She finally let a tear escape, and he saw up close the weight the child carried, and for a moment something hard inside him also broke. The girl, with timid courage, held out the $10 bill to him. It was her way of saying she didn't want anything for free, that the cake, however impossible, had to involve some effort from her. The millionaire looked at the bill for a few seconds. The way she held that small amount, as if it were the most precious of treasures, made something tighten inside him. Instead of refusing immediately, he held the girl's hand over the bill and said, "Keep this. Today I'm the one who's getting a gift." The girl frowned, confused. It was hard to believe that someone like him, with that impeccable appearance and the bearing of someone who had everything, could consider something like that a gift. The man noticed the doubt in her eyes and added, "You reminded me of something I had forgotten." She didn't understand, but she didn't need to. Some messages are bigger than words can explain. The cashier carefully closed the box, tying a simple but pretty ribbon around it. Then she pushed it towards the little girl, who held it with both trembling hands. The box seemed enormous for her small arms, but she hugged it with such affection that it felt like she was carrying twice the weight. The girl thanked her softly, almost whispering. Her voice seemed to ache with sincerity. The millionaire stood up, straightened his jacket, and prepared to leave. But something inside him still held him back. He realized the girl had no bag, no transportation, and judging by the way she was clutching the box, she would probably have to cross a good part of the city on foot. This hit the man hard. He took a deep breath and asked bluntly, "Can I take you and your mother home?" The girl's eyes widened in surprise. It wasn't common for someone to offer something like that. She hesitated, pressed the box against her chest, and asked with innocent fear, "But why?" The man took a deep breath, as if he were grappling with an inner truth. Because no one should have to carry such an important gift alone. The girl thought for a few seconds, then made a small movement with her head, accepting. He didn't smile. He just breathed, as if rediscovering a lost part of himself. And then he opened the door of the pastry shop for her to pass through, in a gesture that seemed simple, but that would change both of their lives, much more than they imagined at that moment. The millionaire's black car was parked right in front of the bakery, gleaming in the soft late afternoon light. When the door opened, the little girl hesitated for a second before climbing in, clutching the cake box tightly, as if it were a treasure too fragile to entrust to the world. He gently helped her up, closed the door, and walked around, getting in on the other side. Inside the car, the air smelled of new leather and silence, the kind of silence that reveals more about a person than any words could explain. The millionaire adjusted his seatbelt, but lingered before starting the car. His gaze, once so sure, now seemed lost somewhere on the invisible dashboard. The little girl, still clutching the cake, noticed this. She didn't know much about adults, but she quickly learned to recognize when someone was sad, because she grew up watching her own mother carry burdens she didn't speak aloud. So with that gentleness only children possess, she asked softly, "Were you sad, sir?" The question struck the millionaire like an unexpected lightning bolt. He blinked a few times, took a deep breath, and answered honestly, "No. I just remembered a few things." The girl, respecting that silent space, didn't insist. But her gentle gaze reminded the man that there are pains that only heal when we are seen, even by such small eyes. He started the car, and the smooth engine broke the silence. The city passed by the windows like a film, simple streets, people walking hurriedly, children running with used backpacks, street vendors offering small dreams at affordable prices. At each corner, the little girl squeezed the box a little tighter, as if she feared that any sudden movement could erase it from existence. For much of the journey, she remained silent, simply observing the city with that shy but attentive gaze. The millionaire, on the other hand, seemed restless. It was as if something inside him was rewriting itself as he drove the car. He finally asked, "What's your mother's name?" The girl replied with a small smile, "Daniela." He repeated the name softly, as if testing its sound within his own chest. Then he asked where they lived, and the girl indicated with her hand. They left the main streets and entered narrower alleys with humble houses huddled together. For the millionaire, that scene had been distant for many years, almost like another planet. But at the same time, it was strangely familiar. Old memories mingled with the present moment, and he felt that something inside him was about to align, like a piece finally finding its place. When the car stopped in front of the girl's house, he was surprised by the simplicity of the place. The door was peeling, the walls bore the marks of time, and the small yard was improvised with planters made from cut bottles. But there was something beautiful there, a sense of effort and care, as if every detail was the result of someone trying, even with little, to make everything feel like home. The little girl slowly opened the car door and got out with the box, thanking him several times in a trembling voice. The millionaire also got out, accompanying her to the front door, not out of obligation, but because something inside him didn't want to leave yet. The door opened before they could knock. The girl's mother, Daniela, appeared, her eyes tired, her hair hastily tied back, and dressed as if she had just arrived from a long day at work. But when she saw her daughter there, with a box far too large for their reality, her eyes filled with surprise and confusion. "Daughter, what is this?" The little girl didn't answer immediately. She simply took a step forward, placed the box in her mother's hands, and said, with the purest smile anyone could offer, "It's for you. Happy birthday." That instantly overwhelmed Daniela. Her hands trembled, her eyes filled with tears so quickly she didn't even try to hide them. She looked at the cake, looked at her daughter, looked at the man behind her, and everything became so confusing, so overwhelming, so unexpected that she had to prop the box up on the table to keep it from falling. The little girl ran to her mother and hugged her legs, and Daniela leaned in to hug her back, crying. The millionaire watched this scene closely, and something inside him was breaking and rebuilding itself at the same time. He'd spent years accumulating money, deals, goals, meetings, numbers, but never, in any of those achievements, had he felt anything like what he felt at that moment. When Daniela finally found the strength to speak, her voice trembled. I don't understand. How did you..." The girl explained everything in simple detail, saying that she had gone to buy a cake with the $10 she had saved for weeks, and that the man had helped her. She didn't exaggerate. She didn't embellish the story. She just told the truth. Daniela looked at the millionaire with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. It was hard to imagine someone of that stature, in that car, in that expensive suit, doing something so human. She tried to thank him, but the words escaped her like a silent prayer. "Thank you. I don't know what to say." The millionaire took a deep breath, and for the first time, he spoke something he had been holding back since the bakery. "She reminded me of my mother." Daniela frowned, not fully understanding, but she sensed the pain there. He continued, his voice low but firm. "I grew up in a small place too, and sometimes what hurts the most isn't the poverty, but feeling that nobody sees what you do, how hard you try." His voice almost faltered, but he maintained control. "Today she reminded me of that, and she reminded me of my mother too." Daniela took a deep breath, moved. There was something about his vulnerability that touched her deeply, because although they came from different worlds, human pain is always recognizable. The girl, sensing the atmosphere, held the millionaire's hand naturally, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. He looked at her and felt the impact of that trust. There was a brief but vivid silence that seemed to connect the three of them through something greater than words. That's when Daniela did something unexpected. She invited him in to sing "Happy Birthday" with them. The offer took him by surprise. For a moment he thought about refusing. He didn't want to intrude on their moment, but Daniela noticed his hesitation and said with a tender smile, "Sometimes people appear at the right time. Today, you were one of them." Oh, the millionaire had no argument against it. He went in. The house was small, but full of love in every simple detail. The little girl placed the cake in the center of the table, lit the candle, and called her mother to stand beside her. The millionaire stood a few steps behind, as if unsure of where to position himself in that scene. But the little girl pulled him by the hand, bringing him closer, and he went. When they sang Happy Birthday, something inside him broke definitively, but this time it didn't hurt. It was as if an inner door had finally been opened, allowing light to enter where for years there had only been empty space. When Daniela made her wish and blew out the candle, tears also fell from the millionaire's eyes, discreet but real, deep, old. And in that simple, humble, genuine moment, he felt something that no luxury, no corporate achievement, no award had ever given him: belonging. When he said goodbye, the little girl hugged him tightly, and Daniela thanked him once more. He got into the car with a heavy heart, but not from sadness, heavy with meaning, with purpose, with rediscovered humanity. When he started the car and looked in the rearview mirror, he saw the two of them waving from the doorway. For the first time in years, he truly smiled. That smile that comes from within, that comes from healing. And driving away, he knew that this encounter hadn't been by chance. He had given a cake, but received something infinitely greater. And on that day, without realizing it, he began to write a new version of himself. And if this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone you love. Click now to share it. Like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the upcoming stories we're preparing with great care for you.